Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. There's a guy in my neighborhood who's kind of nutty. He rides his bike through the neighborhood and he yells at people who are driving their cars. And he's so mean, actually, that he's actually maced a few people through their open window a few times. He's gotten in trouble with the law and people avoid him. It's kind of nuts. And one day I was taking a walk and I heard his voice driven up behind me. And I heard him say, "Do you think there's any hope for this little fellow?" And he held out his hand, and there was a little salamander in his hand. And he said, "This guy looks kind of dehydrated. I'm hoping he's okay. I think I'll take him to the local lake and see if I can get him some water." And I was stunned because I had judged this guy as being a total weirdo, but he was not. He had a very kind side to him. And then he said, "Well, even if he doesn't survive, it's okay. He's an eternal being like all of us. And he'll go back to God." And he went on his way holding this salamander kindly in one hand while he guided his bike with the other. I thought, wow, I had this guy all wrong. I know he has his dark side, but he also has this light side. And it reminded me that when we judge somebody, we're seeing a snapshot of them in one moment from one angle. And if we were to see them at another time, from another angle, we would see an entirely different person. So who is the person? Well, the person is basically the version of them that you're choosing to see in that moment. More metaphysically, they're always the divine being, because that's their true self. But if you choose to see them from a judgmental angle, that's the one that you're sifting out and interpreting. And likewise, many years ago, I was visiting a children's zoo. And there was a guy at the snack bar who was very abusive. And he was yelling and pounding at the attendant for some silly reason, like he didn't get his mustard. And I thought, wow, this guy's a pretty mean hombre. And a few minutes later, I was walking through the zoo and I saw a man kneeling at the deer enclosure. And he was petting and feeding a little fawn so gently. I thought, well, that could be like St. Francis. And the man turned his head, and it was the same fellow. So in one moment, he was a devil. In another moment, he was a saint. So who was he really? So we all have a dual nature. We have a real nature of God, but we seem to have a dual nature of non-godly in moments. And the thing is that sometimes when people are quite mean and they have a transformation, they become beautifully divine, and all the energy that was invested in resistance becomes healing. When I first started doing retreats, I did a weekend retreat once, and there was one lady in the group who just bucked me at every turn. She was resisting and arguing, giving me a hard time. I thought, well, what's she doing here? And at the third morning of the retreat, the last morning, she came and said, "I got it. I realized what this is all about. I don't know what I was upset about. This is great stuff, and I want to come back." And as dark as she had been for the weekend, that's as light as she became when she had her shift. And she came to many programs for many years after that. So who was she really? Well, I like to think she was the person she became. And another author, famous seminar leader, told me that she had a similar student many years ago, and this guy just came to a retreat. He just gave everybody a hard time, and it was mean. He disturbed the group, and he criticized the teacher. And he actually blew up in a fit of rage, and he left. And she thought, well, that was a big mistake to have him there. And 10 years later, she got an email from this fellow saying, "I'm so sorry I was so mean at that program. I I was going through a divorce and I wasn't feeling well. My money was dipping, and so I took it out on the group. It was my fault entirely. Can you please forgive me? And I really used that experience to grow because I don't want to be like that anymore. So every nasty person is a great person in the making. And I think I might have mentioned once about this criminal named Star Daily, Starr Daily, Daily. You can look him up on the internet, especially on Amazon. He has some books. And back in the early 1920s, he was a hardened criminal. I think he was in jail by the time he was 20 for multiple bank robberies. He was just the worst of the worst. And he was not a model prisoner. He got in trouble for inciting riots, and he ended up in solitary confinement. And in those days, prisons were less humane. They had this guy shackled to a bar, hanging all day long, and he slept on a concrete pad at night, and he spat in the guards' faces when they brought him his food. He was just like the worst of the worst. And then one day in a flash, Jesus Christ appeared to him. And he said, I felt the evil draining out of my body. All that darkness just went away, and I became a new person. I decided to devote my life to loving. He studied with a lifer who taught him the Bible, and he became a very holy man. He wrote some books. One's called Release, and another's called Love Can Open Prison Doors. He became almost like a saint after being a real devil. So every dark person, every dark spirited person has the power and the potential to become a very divine expressive being under the right circumstances and at the right point in their evolution. So if you're seeing somebody who's really mean and nasty, you're seeing them at an earlier stage of evolution before they've had their transformation. And the Course in Miracles promises that a happy outcome to all things is sure. Happy outcome to all things is sure. And we might say that the transformation of every evil person is assured. Maybe not when you see it, maybe not in your lifetime, maybe in another lifetime with another level of evolution. But evil is temporary. And it's guaranteed that spirit and love will triumph over all evil eventually, somehow at a certain frequency of consciousness. Now let's take this from another angle, shall we? We're talking about judging others, but what about when other people judge you? It's the same position in reverse. So if somebody else judges you, they must be in pain. And they must be not seeing clearly. They're seeing through their own filter of perception. And you've heard me say that hurt people, which means that anybody who is mean and nasty to you must be wounded. They're in psychic pain. They were abused by somebody, and they don't know how to relieve themselves of that abuse. And they try to do it by projecting it onto you, and that doesn't work because they're not healed for sure. And if you're not careful, you will buy it, you will accept it. This is why Don Miguel Ruiz said in his wonderful book, Four Agreements, don't take anything personally on the Four Agreements. So somebody dumps on you, it's their problem, not yours. It's your problem if you accept it. Now, if they say something that bugs you, then you have to be buggable. You need to take responsibility for the part of you that agrees with them. So if I said to you that, let's say you're wearing a lovely, nice white shirt, and I said to you, well, that's a really ugly orange shirt you're wearing. What would you say? Well, that's a nice white shirt. I don't know who you're seeing because I know what I'm wearing. And so, but if you have doubts that it might be an orange shirt and it might be ugly, then it's going to poke at something inside you that's hypersensitive. And if it does, it's a gift, because that person is causing you to re-examine your own self-judgments. They are dredging them up from the subconscious so you can recognize how you're beating yourself up and then do your inner spiritual work to stop. So those who bug you are your teachers, helping you to recognize that you have a place where you need to grow. And so you can thank them if you're really conscious about it. A teacher named Sally Kempton said, it's impossible to defeat an enemy who has an outpost in your head. Meaning that the people who bug you don't really live out there, only in a very limited sense do they, but they really live in here. And you can have dead relatives who are still yelling at you in your brain, but it's you yelling at yourself. You understand? It's just their voice that you've adopted and you believe is your own, but it's not. And the good news is that because that voice is operating inside your own mind, then you have the opportunity to heal it, because it's not between you and them, it's between you and you. This is metaphysics we're looking at, or the science of looking inward for answers instead of seeing the world as if it's a separate entity from yourself. And so the final frontier really is not outer space, but it's inner space. And it's facing your own self judgments. And I coach lots of people, and I teach a coach training, as you know. And one of the most common themes I see is people beating themselves up for not being who they think they should be. And I often see that a lot of people criticize themselves for not being enough of what they already are. Let me explain. Once I had this client who's just the loveliest lady, just the sweetest, kindest lady. And then the coach, he says, well, I don't think I'm nice enough. And I laughed. I said, are you serious? I said, I think you're one of the nicest people I know. I think you're almost saintly. And you think you're nice enough? You're not nice enough? And I realized that because she had such a high standard of kindness, most of which she had met, she could never really hit perfection. And that's so for the small gap between where she was and perfection, she was beating herself up. And I noticed, like with people who are very fit and healthy, they think, I can't be healthy enough. I don't eat right enough. I had one potato chip 3 weeks ago, and I blew my diet. Or people have really nice lawns and they're landscaping. Oh, that guy down the street has a much better lawn than I do. And it's all because let's put it this way, that if you're judging yourself for something, I want to suggest that you may already be healed of the thing you judge against, but because your standards are so high, you haven't met that standard. So can you validate yourself for being what you already are, instead of criticizing yourself for not being enough for what you think you should be? Chew on that for a minute. And so if we can just release ourselves and look in the mirror and say, I kind of like you. I think you're a pretty good person. In fact, I think I will love you just as you are. And I will not give my power away to judgments by others or by myself. I will not set an impossible standard of perfection. One of my clients came to me and said, I was not getting along with my husband. He wasn't doing something right. And I said, why should I hold him to perfection when I can't offer perfection myself? And so none of us are perfect in the human level. We all have our foibles and faults and issues. Divinely, we're always perfect. The spirit within us has never been marred by any personality flaw or errors, and that's the bottom line. But in the world, we're human beings. Let's kind of cut ourselves a break. And let us enjoy ourselves for who we are instead of berating ourselves for who we're not. Conversely, or let us also enjoy others for who they are instead of berating them for who they're not. And especially if you're in a marriage or a relationship or a family where there's conflict or judgment, consider which version of this person you are choosing to see. And remember the person you married. So why did I marry this person? I kind of liked some things about them. And they did this and they did that, and they were kind of fun and they loved me. They brought me presents and we laughed together and we joked about our foibles. And what if you just reclaimed the version of that person that you fell in love with and let that person be that person instead of the person you perceive them to have become? And I want to make the bold suggestion that it's not so much that they become a different person. Sometimes it happens, but really almost always it's the version of them that you've changed your mind to see instead of the version that you chose when you first met and loved them. So once again, it comes back to that inner homework of choosing to see a higher version instead of getting stuck in the lower version. So if you really listen to today's message, I've given you the keys to get free from judgment, which is a terrible burden. God doesn't punish us for judging. We punish ourselves by judging. You understand? Because that energy of judgment has to come through us. So what if today was a big release day? The judgments you've laid upon others and others have been laid upon you. And what if today was a great day of freedom from judgment? How cool would that be? Let's make that today. So let me tell you about our upcoming programs, and then we'll have our divine closing meditation. We have two coming up that are really exciting. One is in the first week in December, second week in December. I'll be with Mike Dooley, Marie Manucherry, Ariel Shai-Kane, and Deborah Engel. It's five of my dearest colleagues and my most respect. I'll be doing a 4-evening webinar series on how to move from the darkness to light, how to drop judgments, how to quit working ourselves so we can enjoy our lives, how to get out from the curse of details that seems to encumber us. We have lots of topics we're going to discover. Lots of time for Q&A and interaction. So go to my website, alancohen.com, and you can join me for the second week in December with these divine, loving teachers. And this is an unusual program. It's a set your own tuition program, so you have a choice about how much you'd like to invest. And then, of course, we're beginning in January our divine holistic life coach training. This changes the lives of the coaches as well as their clients. And this one will be entirely online, so you can do it from the comfort of your home. We have a fabulous group shaping up. And if you are abroad or in a place where it might be difficult for you to travel, this will be the perfect training for you, because probably after this, we'll go back to the in-person format for the retreat portion. So go to my website. It's filling up now. We'd love to have you join us and play with me very closely and powerfully for 6 months. And it's a training to change your life, guaranteed. Okay, so let's close with a moment of intention and knowing. If you'd like to close your eyes with me for a moment, and let's just go in. We'll do today in the form of a prayer. Great Spirit, God of all that is, help me to rise above my fears that cause me to judge. I'm tired of judging. I'm tired of being judged. I'm tired of living in a world founded in judgment. I today choose to rise above the mindset of limitation, opinion, divisiveness, argument. All those are aspects of judgment. Today, I choose to raise my energy and go to a finer, higher, pure vibration, where I choose a version of myself and the world that is healed. I want to see the good in people. I want to see people as blessings in my life. I want to help people by seeing the highest version of them. And I simultaneously want to see the highest version of my life. So Great Spirit, support me today to come out of the cocoon of judgment and into the open sky of seeing as God sees. Today, I want to use divine vision to reveal to me the gifts of God that have been laid before me and have always been right with me. I want to see clearly today. I want to see through the eyes of love. I want to see through the eyes of appreciation and expression of joy. This is the day I choose today. I will do my part. And I call upon Great Spirit to assist me to fill a vision I was born to enjoy. And so it is.